And good afternoon, everyone, and good morning to those of you who are on the west side of the country where I am. My name is Steve Teutsch, and as chair of the committee, I want to welcome all of you to the second meeting of the Committee on Health Effects and Patterns of Use of Premium Cigars of the National Academy of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine. This study is sponsored by the Center for Tobacco Products at the Food and Drug Administration, as well as the National Institutes of Health. Today, I'm joined by committee members who are also participating virtually. I'll have each of them introduce themselves shortly, but before we proceed, I want to note that this is an open, on-the-record session. Interested individuals have been invited to attend as observers via video conference. For all of you who are listening in, I want to remind you that this is an information gathering session, which means that the committee is in the process of assembling materials that it will examine and discuss in the course of making its findings, conclusions, and recommendations. Therefore, I ask everyone to be extremely mindful of the fact that the committee has made no conclusions and that it would be a mistake for anyone to leave here today thinking otherwise. Comments made by individuals, including members of the committee, should not be interpreted as positions of the committee or the National Academies. In addition, committee members typically do ask probing questions in these information gathering sessions that may not be indicative of their personal views. We anticipate the report to be released in March of next year. And the committee will be deliberating thoroughly before drafting its report. And once the draft is completed, it goes through a rigorous review by experts who are anonymous to the committee and then undergoes final revisions and editing. This is the second information gathering session of the committee. And will be continued this Friday, April 23, with presentations from invited speakers. The date for the next information gathering meeting is May 28. Meeting information will be posted on the project website. In addition to the remarks we'll hear today and the presentations we'll be hearing on Friday, the committee has reviewed information relevant to its charge and will continue to gather information over the course of the study. Please note the meeting is being recorded. And before I ask folks to provide the input, that I want the committee members to briefly introduce themselves, giving their names and current affiliation. Brief bios of all the members are available online. I'll start and then call on each committee member in alphabetical order to introduce themselves. As I said, my name is Steve Teutsch. I'm at UCLA and the University of Southern California. And now I'll take you in alphabetical order. So Wei, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, this is Wei Bao, assistant professor at the University of Iowa.
And Neil?
I'm Neil Benowitz, emeritus professor of medicine at the University of California, San Francisco.
Chris?
Christine Del Nevo, professor at Rutgers University Center for Tobacco Studies.
And Pebbles? Actually, I don't see Pebbles here. Is she on?
I think she said she's running a little bit late.
Okay, well, ask her again when she comes. Maciej?
Maciej Goniewicz, professor at Roswell Park Comprehensive Cancer Center.
Steve Hecht?
Steve Hecht, professor at the University of Minnesota.
Miranda?
Hi, Miranda Jones, assistant professor of epidemiology at the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health.
And Grace? Oh, you're here. Good.
Hello, my name is Grace Kong. I'm assistant professor in the Department of Psychiatry at Yale School of Medicine.
And Adam?
Hi, Adam Leventhal, professor of preventive medicine, University of Southern California.
Darren?
I'm Darren Mays. I'm an associate professor at The Ohio State University.
Rafael?
Hi, Rafael Mesa, associate professor and associate chair of epidemiology, University of Michigan.
And Kim?
Hi, I'm Kim Sterling. I'm an associate professor in the Department of Health Promotion and Behavioral Sciences at the University of Texas School of Public Health.
And last, but by no means least, Andrea.
Andrea Volanti, I'm an associate professor at the University of Vermont.
Great. So that's our committee. Next, I'd like to let our guests who signed up to provide public comments to the committee speak. Anyone who did not register may also provide comments during this meeting as time permits. After those who have registered have finished providing their comments, anyone else who would like to provide comments should feel free to raise your hand virtually, of course, and the National Academy staff will call on you to speak and will unmute your line. Note, though, that we can't enable your video. Please remember to keep your comments related to the statement of task or the research questions provided to the committee. You can also provide comments via the question and answer box that staff will read, but please note that all materials and comments received will be placed in the committee's public access file and may be provided to the public upon request. Materials and comments received may also be included in the committee's report. So let me turn to today's guests. First, we'll hear from Drew Newman from J.C. Newman Cigar Company, then from Josh Harbursky from the Premium Cigar Association, and then Dr. Hasmina Kathuria, apologize if I mispronounced your name, from the American Thoracic Society. Each guest will have 5 minutes to present their comments. Drew, let's start with you. Feel free to start when you're ready.
Thank you very much, Dr. Teutsch and committee members. Good afternoon or good morning. My name is Drew Newman, and in 1895, my great-grandfather, J.C. Newman, founded our family business. And 4 generations and 125 years later, we're the oldest family-owned premium cigar company in America. Today, I'm on the 3rd floor of our historic cigar factory in Tampa, Florida, and I would like to briefly share 4 things. My family's story, how we roll premium cigars, 2 suggestions for the research questions, and why this is important. First and briefly, my great-grandfather lived the American dream. He came to America in 1888 at the age of 13 and became a cigar maker's apprentice, learning the business of premium cigars from the bottom up. In 1895, he founded our family business and passed it down to my grandfather, who passed it down to my father and uncle, who are in the process of passing it down to my cousins and me. Premium cigars are an industry of small family businesses just like ours. Here in Tampa, we proudly roll premium cigars the same way that my great-grandfather did a century ago, both by hand here on the 3rd floor and by hand-operated antique cigar machines on our 2nd floor below me. Our cigars have 3 ingredients: tobacco leaves, water, and adhesive. And it's been that way for centuries. And as you may know, cigar tobacco is very different than cigarette tobacco. It's like apples and oranges. The best way to understand premium cigars, I think, is to think about wine. Just as the soil, sunlight, wind, and rain can cause a grape grown in California to taste different than the same grape grown in Oregon, the same is true of premium cigar tobacco. As with wines, certain vintages or years are better than others, and aging both wine and premium cigars enhances their taste. Many winemakers will blend grapes to create unique tasting wines, and we do the exact same thing with premium cigar tobacco. But it's not standardized, it's not written down, it's not formulaic, it's just a tradition that's been passed down for generations. Premium cigars are just 3% of the cigar industry in America by units, and just 0.5% of the American tobacco industry as a whole. We're just a bunch of small family businesses. I really like the draft research questions that are presented, but want to offer 2 suggestions for the committee's consideration. Anecdotally, we know that the use of premium cigars varies by season. For instance, in the North, consumers smoke far fewer cigars in winter because it's too cold to go outside. And in summer, it's warm, they smoke more premium cigars because they're spending more time outside. The committee may wish to consider whether the data show seasonal differences in use, and depending upon the points in time when you collect the data, review the data has been collected, it may be affected by seasonality. Second, in our experience, consumers smoke premium cigars when enjoying recreational activities like playing golf or going fishing, or at social gatherings like weddings, which is different than how other tobacco products are used. And the committee may wish to consider what activities are associated with premium cigar use and how that compares to other tobacco products. Presently, the federal government classifies cigars as either small or large. And the large cigar category is extremely broad and groups everything together from short filtered cigars to tip cigars to cigarillos to large handmade premium cigars like we make here in Tampa. For any regulation to be effective, it needs to be tailored to what is being regulated. Because premium cigars are grouped together with other products, the data that FDA is relying on to craft its current regulations is messy because it includes both premium and non-premium cigars. This is why I think the committee's work is so important, because it will give FDA the data it needs to tailor regulation to both premium and non-premium cigars. There's so much more that I would love to share with all of you about how cigars are made and tobacco, but unfortunately I'm out of time. However, my family and I would welcome the committee and staff to visit our factory here in Tampa anytime. We can examine tobacco, we can teach you how to roll premium cigars, whatever you like. However we can be helpful, please just let us know. So thank you very much for your time and for doing this important work.
Great, thank you so much. And I hope you can stick around because hopefully the committee may have questions for you as we go through the program today. So thank you. Joshua, I think you're there.
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Joshua Habursky, and I'm the head of government relations for the Premium Cigar Association, which is the leading association and advocacy organization representing 3,000 brick and mortar retailers of premium handmade cigars serving legal adults in age-verified locations. Premium cigar retailers, also known as tobacconists, are located in all 50 states in the District of Columbia. Many PCA members are family-owned businesses spanning several generations and employing an average of 6 to 7 members of local communities and nearly 30,000 nationwide in specialty storefronts and lounges where Americans from all walks of life can sit back, relax, and enjoy a shared passion. Our organization would like to thank the committee and the National Academy of Sciences for researching this important topic and collecting the abundance of research by relevant stakeholders and the FDA on the health effects and usage of premium cigars. At the session on April 23rd, you will be hearing from several of my colleagues on specific research related to the topic at hand and evidence that we use in the halls of Congress, legal proceedings, and with regulators, showcasing the unique characteristics of premium cigars. In both oral and written testimony, we hope to showcase to the committee the distinct differences of premium cigars, their usage patterns, user profiles, and health risks contrasted against other tobacco products. Despite this inquiry being focused on scientific and health research, it is also important to examine the context and policy considerations as much of the research exists because of action in the policy arena. My colleagues will provide that historical context and the current state of play as it relates to handmade products. As we examine the preliminary research questions, the Premium Cigar Association points out that the industry and its primary regulator have a common definition for what constitutes a premium cigar. This definition of premium cigar that was recently used by the FDA in the Academy of Pediatrics versus the FDA, and in Judge Amit Mehta's opinion in Cigar Association of America versus the FDA, the Premium Cigar Association and Cigar Rights of America endorses this definition, which consists of 8 criteria, which I submitted in this written document. Note that this definition does not include flavors, additives, or allow for mechanized construction or an economic quantifier as a price floor for a premium cigar. Unfortunately, there is not yet a federal distinguishing definition of premium cigars, and this results in variance in scientific studies and the conflation of premium and non-premium data, which is often supported by various interest groups to pursue other regulation and prohibitionist policies. Relying on such data when answering the sponsor's questions will expand the intended subject, premium cigars, beyond its natural scope. Given the adoption of this definition by the premium cigar industry, the FDA, and the federal courts, we encourage the committee to use this definition previously cited for the purposes of this study so that stakeholders and regulators can continue to address policy concerns from a common ground. As you conduct the literature review, we encourage you to carefully examine the population assessment of tobacco and health path study, a joint study by the FDA and the National Institutes of Health that covers a multi-year cross-section of youth and adults. PATH is one of the few studies that effectively identified and analyzed data specific to premium cigars. It is important to note that this study was not an industry-led initiative, but government-funded research that acknowledges distinct characteristics of premium cigars compared to all other tobacco products. Many of the preliminary research questions related to patterns of use and health effects are directly addressed in this study, including the average premium cigar smoker has 1 to 2 out of every 30 days. The average of an individual first premium cigar is at the age of 30, and there is no meaningful correlation between premium cigars and cigarette smoking. Youth access to tobacco products is typically one of the leading issues facing policymakers and regulators in an area identified in the preliminary research. Fortunately, the FDA last January acknowledged that premium cigars are our lowest enforcement priority, and the compliance data also supports that conclusion. I look forward to providing additional information to the committee, and thank you again for the ability to participate in this session.
Thanks very much, and Joshua, I hope you can stay with us so that in case the committee has additional questions for you. Dr. Kathuria, are you here?
Yep, I'm here.
Oh, good, good. I didn't see your name there. Welcome. Please tell us what you have to say.
Okay. My name is Hasmina Kathuria. I'm a pulmonologist, an associate professor at Boston University, and director of the Tobacco Treatment Center. I also serve as the vice chair of the ATS Tobacco Action Committee. I appreciate the opportunity to address NASM panel regarding the health effects and patterns of cigar use. I would like to make the following comments. First, there is no such thing as a premium cigar. The premium cigar is a concept developed by the tobacco industry to try to escape FDA regulation of all tobacco products. Whether you use a weight and price point as proposed in the FDA deeming rule and legislation by Representative Poloni, or a manufacturing process definition, such as the Traditional Cigar Manufacturing and Small Business Jobs Preservation Act, you are still talking about a combustible tobacco product that has the known adverse health effects of tobacco. NASM should not adopt the fraudulent concept of a premium cigar. Second, while I know it is not within the scope of NASM to compel FDA to take action, it is important to note that FDA currently has all the authority and information it needs to develop effective regulation to protect the public from the known harms of all tobacco products, including cigars. While additional research and information is always welcome, the agency should take immediate action to regulate cigars. Third, the adverse health effects of cigars are well known and well documented. According to the NCI, when compared to cigarettes, cigars have a higher level of cancer-causing substances, more tar, and a higher level of toxins. Further, cigar smoking causes cancer of the oral pharynx, the larynx, the esophagus, and the lung. It may also cause cancer of the pancreas. Moreover, daily cigar smokers, particularly those who inhale, are at increased risk of developing heart disease and other types of lung disease, such as COPD. Secondhand smoke from cigars also contain the same toxic chemicals that secondhand cigarette smokers do. This type of smoke can cause or contribute to lung cancer and heart disease. It also increases the risk and severity of childhood asthma, ear infections, and upper and lower respiratory infections in children. Lastly, I've reviewed the draft questions and would like to make the following comments. Under the patterns of use section, when assessing the characteristic of individuals who use cigars, in addition to age, gender, race, ethnicity, educational attainment, and income, consider including sexual orientation. Consider researching what is known about co-use of premium cigars and other tobacco products, as well as co-use of premium cigars along with marijuana and other substance use. Under the health effects section, for the research question, how do the health effects of premium cigar use vary by the following factors? In addition to the frequency and intensity of use, it would be important to consider the amount of cigar smoke inhaled. Similarly, it would be important to study the health effects of individuals who formerly smoke cigarettes, as these individuals are more likely to inhale more intensely when they switch to cigar use. Lastly, under the health effects section, are there plans to study the health effects of co-use of cigars with other substances? For example, the effects of alcohol and cigar use on oral cancers. And lastly, under the use liability section, an additional research question to consider is how does current cigar use influence future initiation of cigarettes and other substance use? Thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate those comments. Before I invite the committee to query folks, at this time, we can invite anyone else who would like to provide comments to the committee to raise your hands virtually. And then, as I said, the NAS staff will unmute your line. And if you could limit your comments to 5 minutes, as all of these speakers did, that would be great. So anyone in the audience who would like to speak, please raise your hands. I can't see you, so I'll let the National Academy staff moderate this.
So far, Steve, we don't have any hands, but we can give folks a moment. And if you're having trouble finding where you raise your hand, I know sometimes that's an issue. You can also say that you would like to speak in the Q&A box.
Or chat box.
Yeah, if you just type your name in there, we can call on you.
Okay, so people may pop up with comments as we go along. Let me open it up to the committee to ask any questions or make any comments in regard to the speakers we just heard. Jennifer Fusetta, you there? Can we unmute her?
Yes, give me one moment and I will. Okay, so Jennifer, you should see something come on your screen allowing you to unmute. Hold on.
Is that you, Jennifer? We hear an intermittent voice.
Mario, are you, I don't know if I'm doing this incorrectly.
Yeah, she continue muted. She has to unmute herself.
Jennifer, can you unmute yourself? Yeah, so first, this technology isn't always exactly what we want. We're so used to meeting in person for these things that we do have to face these challenges. Are you there, Jennifer? When you are, just please speak up because I can't see you. Any other questions comments from the committee?
Okay, so it looks like Jennifer is now, we've moved her over to a panelist, so should now be able to unmute herself and speak. Okay, well, maybe we'll circle back to Jennifer.
Okay. She has no microphone. Okay. Let me start. Dr. Theria, you made the point that there's really no distinction between premium and non-premium cigars, and it's an artificial distinction. But you also acknowledge that there are some things that sort of characterize these differences, whether it's how they're made or potentially flavorings and things like that. Can you comment a little bit further about the fact that some of these products seem to have different sets of users, and you went through a list of the things that we need to look through about the different potential users and how that might affect their health effects?
Yeah, well, I think, for instance, at my hospital at Boston Medical Center, the largest safety net in New England, cigarillos and little cigars need to be looked at, and we see a rapid uprise in those products because they're less expensive. When I go to the community where I live in, which is the suburbs, we see the premium cigars, and I just worry about any sort of when we advertise these as being safer, and we don't look at what they are, which are tobacco products that have a lot of smoke. We look at previous people who used cigarettes and now have moved to cigars. They inhale deeper. And, so I worry about trying to say that some products are safe versus other products not being safe. Some products are safer than others. This is going back into filtered products and light and things that we've known over the years. And so I think we just need to be very careful in the language that we use and label these are tobacco
products. Neil and Chris, and well, actually, I see Jennifer's got her hand up. So since we've tried before, see if we have better luck this time, Jennifer.
I think she's having trouble with her microphone. I'm chatting with her separately, and I will let you know if she's able to get that to work.
Okay. So Neil, then Mache, and then Chris.
Sure, thanks. So I've got a question for Mr. Newman. And this is maybe something that our committee may hear about later on, but I'm just curious. Premium cigars are so different from one another in flavor and prices and how they're advertised. Can you tell me how you select leaves and just aging to make cigars that taste differently, attract to different people? I mean, what are the differences among premium cigars that we should know about?
Thank you so much. That's such an excellent question. So what we're doing as cigar makers is we're growing a leaf on a plant. And premium cigars, tobacco, first of all, in the United States, it's essentially grown in Connecticut, a little bit in Massachusetts, and a little bit in Pennsylvania. That's where cigar tobacco is grown in the States. And when cigar tobacco is grown, every plant is different and every leaf is different. And when the leaves are picked, they're then dried and cured. It's a natural wilting process in a barn. And then they go through another curing process that's called fermentation. It's not really fermentation. Happy to talk to you about that if you like. But in answer to your question, tobacco leaves are sorted, and they're sorted in a myriad of ways. They're sorted by size, by length. They're sorted by color. What shade of brown are they? Or are they closer to black? Are they closer to green? Is there some red tint into them? They're also shaded by thickness. And some leaves are thicker, and some leaves are thinner, and they're also sorted by where they are on the plant. Generally speaking, leaves that are smaller, that are thicker, and that are closer to the top of the plant have more taste to them. And the leaves that are near the bottom of the plant are a little thinner. They're further from the sun, so they have fewer nutrients in them when they grow, and they burn better. And so what we do is we simply take a whole selection of different types of leaves grown in different places on different plants, and we blend them together, just like a winemaker may blend 6 or 7 different types of grapes, red grapes, that are grown into a red blend wine. And by adjusting the blend of leaves that are grown on different farms and different fields and different years and different sizes and different thicknesses, we can then adjust the sort of taste of the cigar. And that's why with cigarettes and mass market products, those products are homogenized, they're standardized, they're made in very large volumes, but have very little variety, relatively speaking. With premium cigars, there's an infinite amount of variety because we can adjust the leaves that we choose to roll in each cigar, and we can adjust the size. We can roll it larger or smaller, or with a rounded head or a pointed foot or a rounded foot. And so it's very much a art that'll and the natural variety of tobacco allows us to be selective like that. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it's very interesting. So are they consistent, say, from year to the next, or it seem like they might vary according to how the tobacco is growing that year?
You're so right. The test of a good premium cigar maker is whether you can roll the same cigar consistently from year to year and smooth out the natural variations from one crop to the next. And the way that we and most people do it is you blend multiple years of tobacco within a single cigar. And so that the filler tobacco in this cigar may have a leaf that's 3 years old, maybe it's 2 years old, maybe that's 4 years old. And over time, by blending across years, you can smooth out the natural differences from year to year. And so whereas wines are pretty much made one vintage at a time, grapes from 1 year at a time, premium cigars typically blend multiple years worth of tobacco in order to smooth out the very natural variations from crop to crop.
And just a follow-up question, do you own the tobacco farms, or do all the premium cigar manufacturers just go shopping to all the farms that are available? How's that work out?
That's a great question. With so many things, it all varies and it's all different. My family, we don't have any farms. We have our hands full just trying to roll cigars. Some people have their own farms too, but what we do is we have long-term partnerships. Like we buy our Connecticut tobaccos from a 7th generation family farmer who's been growing on the same land since 1700s, and they grow and we buy, and so you just have a long-term relationships like that, and it's kind of how it works.
Thank you very much.
Great. Chris and then Grace.
Sure. I also have a question for Mr. Newman. You had commented that the premium cigar market makes up about 3% of the total cigar units in the US. Can you share what statistic or what source you would be citing for that?
That was addressed to Drew, right?
Yeah.
I don't know why he looks frozen to me.
It does. Yeah.
So hopefully he will return. This is a technologically challenged morning. Grace, do you want to go ahead, and then we'll get back to Drew on Chris's question.
Drew's screen froze. I just corresponded with him that the Cigar Association of America compiles import numbers, and based off of those import numbers is where the conclusion of that it's 0.01% of the overall tobacco market of what premium cigars consist of.
So for clarification, is it just imports that are being considered in that calculation?
That are, yeah, direct imports into the country.
So premium cigars made in the US would not be counted in that particular estimate that you're citing, which may not be the same one that Mr. Newman is citing.
So there are, the J.C. Newman company is one that makes cigars in the United States. He would be the authority on that, including ones that are made in the United States. But the numbers, the vast majority of premium cigars are imported into the U.S.
Thank you.
Grace.
Yeah, so I also had a question for Mr. Newman as well about the rolling process. So he's mentioned the rolling machine. And so I'm just kind of curious about how many cigars are able to be rolled by the rolling machine and just some more information on that, since I think his company is primarily rolling these cigars. But I don't think he's here. So
I don't see him back. So Joshua, is that something you can answer?
In terms of the hand rolling process of, so on average, it takes about 200 people that will craft a premium cigar before it comes to market. It takes about 3 to 5 years. So it's a time intensive process. Drew can talk to this, I think he's back on. He can talk to the specifics of construction since he's in that business. But again, it's an artisanal process. It's a craft process. And like I said, before it becomes available to the consumer, there will be 200 people that touch that. Drew, just to kind of recap for you, there was a question about import numbers, where your citation was from the 0.03%. I mentioned that we talk about 0.01% of the overall market consists of premium cigars for overall tobacco products, and that we get those import numbers from the Cigar Association of America. And then also there was a question about the rolling process.
Can I clarify, since the question was mine? So Mr. Newman, you mentioned 3% of the units of cigars in the US, 3% of them are premium. So I'm just trying to figure out what the source of that statistic is.
Sure,
Since you cited it, I'd like to hear your explanation.
Of course, thank you. I apologize, my laptop froze, and so hopefully the sound is okay now. I will email the committee staff the citation, but those numbers come from the Cigar Association of America and our trade association, that 3% of all cigars by units are premium cigars and 0.01% of all tobacco products in the United States are premium cigars. One of the challenges, I think you hit the nail on the head, is that the U.S. Customs reports cigar imports as either large or small, because that's how they're recorded for tax purposes. And unfortunately, the large cigar category is so broad that includes non-premium products. And so the Cigar Association of America has their analysis, or does an analysis that identifies how many of those large cigars are premium cigars, and I will provide that to the committee this afternoon.
Thank you.
Did you hear Grace's comment or question about the manufacturing process itself?
I'm sorry,
If
Dr.
not, I'll
Choi,
get her to repeat it.
Thank
Grace,
you.
can you
Yes,
sure.
Yeah, so you mentioned about the rolling machine that your company uses. I'm just wondering about the process. How many cigars are you able to roll from that rolling machine, and the role that it plays in constructing the cigar?
Sure, so that's a great question. So here on the third floor behind me, we have some rollers that roll premium cigars by hand. On our third floor and our second floor, in the 1930s, my great-grandfather bought some state-of-the-art machines to help our rollers roll cigars. And those now antique machines assist the cigar worker to roll cigars using them, and they roll about 11 cigars a minute. And I will send a video of that, a link to a video showing that process to the committee staff as well, in case that's helpful.
And how do they then differ from the hand-rolled ones, the ones that are exclusively hand-rolled?
So they differ in a couple of ways. They're similar in the sense they use the same all-natural tobacco leaf wrappers, but they use a tobacco paper binder, which is the middle component, and natural tobacco filler in them.
So let's see, I've got Mache, Kim, and then Chris.
Thank you so much. I have actually a few questions, but maybe three. So the first question would be to Drew and Joshua. So, you discussed this machine rolling that Dr. Kong also asked about it. So according to your definition, would the machine rolling products, rolled products would be also considered premium cigars, or it will be different category?
Not under the CRA and PCA definition, but as I think the committee discussed at the meeting last month, there are a variety of definitions out there for premium cigars because none has been adopted. We're all struggling with that, and some include them, some do not.
Yeah, and just to dovetail off of that, this is one of the areas that Drew and I respectfully disagree. You know, PCA and CRA, we are, 100% behind the definition used by the FDA, and we're encouraging this committee to use that definition in their collection of information as it relates to premium cigars.
Okay, thank you. And a very quick question to I think to Drew. So any other additives that you use during the rolling process, any sugars, anything that you add to the product?
We do not know.
Okay, and the last question, if I may, is actually to everyone and also to Dr. Katuria. What do we know about the initiation of using those products, using cigars? You know, at which, what is the age? What is the, do you see any patterns? How people initiated, how many smokers are switching from smoking combustible cigarettes to smoking cigars? You know, what is your, what information can you share with us?
Just to jump in, the PATH study shows that the average age of first use of a premium cigar is 24.5 years of age, which is different than other types of tobacco products. And I'll provide the citation to that to the committee staff this afternoon.
Dr. Kathuria, did you want to respond?
Yeah, I mean, the data that I've looked at, it's sort of hard to tease because cigars are all kind of lumped together. But I did see concerning, you know, again, not knowing whether it's premium, large, you know, the little cigars, but the former smokers that are now using cigars, as well as former, you know, and the dual use. I think, you know, I don't want to misquote anything, but the literature is out there, and those numbers of former that are now smoking, I recall in my search being higher than 50% in some studies, but they're lumped together. So I don't know that. I know the PATH database sort of differentiates that a little bit better, and it's a very useful database that we've certainly looked at for some of our studies. But the numbers are concerning, and that's why I brought that up, is those studies also show that former smokers who move to premium cigars are inhaling with higher intensity. And so you're not just seeing the concerning oropharyngeal cancers, as you know, you're seeing the COPD and the lung cancers as well. So I think that's something that's really important, and that's something that I brought up in the questions to look at.
Thank you, Kim.
Yes, so this question is for Drew and Joshua. Can you tell us a bit about your users of premium cigars? So you've already spoken to age a bit, but if you could just give us a general description of the users of your products, that would be helpful.
So, you know, that's a great question. One of the things I like about premium cigars is that they bring people together. When I go into a cigar lounge here in Tampa, I see all sorts of people, different ages that are adults, different races, different genders, people who are business executives, people who are construction workers, and it's a really interesting microcosm of society, and that they come together with a shared passion. And so I wouldn't say there is a typical adult premium cigar user, because I see our society and the diversity of it reflected in the the bodies who come to cigar lounges. That said, the percentage of female premium cigar smokers is still very low. It's mostly a male hobby, and the ages tend to be, I would say, middle-aged to more senior citizens. But people from all walks of life seem to enjoy premium cigars. And the citation I'm going to send from the past study that talked about the age of first use also has some demographic data as well. And so perhaps that it will be helpful to see as well from the past study.
Yeah, I would concur with Drew. There's information about education status, different data points in that past study that sheds light on the overall user profiles. But we do see in our cigar lounges and retail shops an older audience. As an association, we were unaffected by the age increase from 18 to 21 because these are adult programs or products. I would encourage the committee to look at the enforcement priorities for the ENDS products, where the FDA acknowledges that premium cigars as a category are the lowest form or the lowest priority for enforcement because of their lack of appeal to youth. So definitely an adult product, but again, we see age is the one variable that stands out. There were several that were analyzed in the past study, but again, our membership, and Scott, my colleague, will talk a little bit more about this on Friday. These are specialty Main Street tobacconists. These are not your convenience stores where folks are purchasing premium cigars.
Thank you. And before we move on, I'd like to follow up on that just a bit. So can you also tell us a bit about how you advertise or promote your product to the public? And this is a question for you, Drew.
Sure. So that's a great question. So premium cigars are mostly hand sold. And so what that means is that a consumer will go into a cigar lounge, and there's typically a walk-in humidor, which is a humidified area with walls of cigars on display. And they will typically engage with a tobacconist, one of Josh's members, and they'll ask for a recommendation or said, I tried this cigar last time, let me try this cigar. I think of it, I like wine, but I know very little about it. So when I go into a wine shop, I do the same thing. I ask for a recommendation, and it's very similar with our consumers as well. And so, especially since there's such a wide variety, there are about 3,000 premium cigar retailers in the United States that are brick and mortar, standalone, mostly mom and pop businesses, and they specialize in premium cigars and accessories like humidors, boxes that you store cigars in, or lighters or cutters. And many of them have a lounge where you can buy a cigar and then sit down and light it up as well.
I think part of the question, though, is what kind of promotion do you actually do outside of the stores themselves?
Sure.
And particularly to get new users.
Sure. So our promotions on the in-store side tend to be buy 3 or get a cigar free, or buy 3, get a cigar cutter free, and so forth. When FDA regulation took effect in 2016, one of the initial features of it was that it banned free sampling, and so we cannot give out free samples anymore. But what we can do is if a consumer comes into a cigar store and buys a couple of cigars, we with that purchase, age verified purchase, we can give a cigar cutter or a cigar lighter or a cigar with that purchase. On the marketing front, we advertise only in cigar trade publications. The most prominent one is Cigar Aficionado, but there are others, Cigar Journal based in Europe, Cigar and Spirits, and so forth. We have a website. We ourselves are not advertising to new consumers. It's a great question. I've never really given much thought about how new people decide to light up a premium cigar. Our focus is on trying to showcase our products to existing premium cigar consumers who are in stores or who are going to a cigar festival or something like that, and having them try one of our cigars.
There's a couple of comments that I have. One is, when I was looking through the literature on this, and in terms of secondhand exposure, I think something important to look at, a study that just came out, is looking at individuals who work in these lounges and their exposure to secondhand smoke, and that some of that data is beginning to come out. And when you talk about, premium, it's implying an advertising, and that's where I sort of, our first comment, premium implying higher quality and or safety. And I think that's just a concerning precedent. And while large cigars may be a small part of the tobacco market, concerned at industry pushing whatever tobacco products are available. We know that when flavored cigarettes were removed from the market, there was an increase in flavored cigars. And so these are all things when you bring up advertising that I think are important considerations, especially when we use terms like premium.
Thank you. Grace?
Yeah, so my question was similar to Dr. Sterling's questions about marketing. So this question is for Mr. Newman, and you mentioned that, for example, people smoke cigars when they're playing golf and at weddings. So does your company do any specific marketing for these large events?
So there are cigar festivals, like here in Tampa, there's a cigar festival every December that a local group organizes. Cigar Aficionado magazine probably has the most famous cigar events. They're called Big Smokes. They've been around for since the mid 90s, and there are other sort of cigar type events where cigar enthusiasts gather and will trade cigars, will smoke cigars together, or they'll hear from manufacturers, very much similar to like a wine tasting festival or a beer festival there. And in answer to your question, we do participate at many festivals, and we'll send our representatives there, or my father, uncle, and I will go, and we'll go talk to consumers.
So are these cigar specific festivals or other festivals as well?
Almost all of them are exclusively cigar festivals. The publisher of Cigar Aficionado magazine also publishes Wine Spectator and Whiskey Advocate. And for example, they're doing a combined whiskey and cigar event in Miami, I think October 30th.
Neil?
Okay, let me start right. So I've got a quick question for Mr. Habersky. Actually, two quick questions. One is, what is the percentage of international versus US premium cigar manufacturers?
So we're a US-based trade organization. I can get that number for you, but I don't have that off the top of my head. That would actually, in terms of manufacturing, Drew would probably be the better person to answer that question, since we represent the retail sector.
So in answer to that question, the United States is the largest market for premium cigars in the world. Consumers in Europe, for instance, like smaller cigars, and most of the majority of the premium cigar business in the world is concentrated in the United States.
Well, I'm not talking about the use. I'm talking about where they're manufactured. It's my impression that manufactured abroad.
Yes.
Predominantly Nicaragua, Honduras, and the Dominican Republic. Those are the three major countries for the U.S. market. Obviously, you add Cuba in the context of the larger international market.
Okay, and then my follow-up on that is, there are definitions that you like, including hand rolling and no additives, no flavors and whatnot. How do you ensure that the premium cigars follow those definitions, especially the ones that come in from abroad? How do you know what they're doing? And how do you know that they're really following the rules, even though they're marketed as premium cigars?
So Josh, I'll just jump in and say, I think that's a great question. One of the odd features of FDA regulation is that the agency has the authority to inspect domestic facilities that manufacture cigars and all tobacco products, and require domestic facilities to register with FDA. But the same requirement hasn't yet been extended to foreign facilities. But I know FDA does foreign inspection of other types of regulated products. And so I think that's always a opportunity there. I would say you can look at a cigar and tell a lot about it. We can deconstruct a cigar and you can open up and see what's there. But that's an excellent question. And the agency has signaled they intend to expand their authority to require to foreign facilities, but my understanding is they've not yet done so.
And on the retail side, thousands of inspections are conducted every year of retail facilities, compliance checks, the stings for age verification and bus. And, if you look at all of the data that the FDA has in, their master file, premium cigar sales are not the ones that are in fraction for these age verification issues. And that's, where that lowest enforcement priority. So the actors in the retail side, we also issue, information and guidelines for our membership in terms of, following the rules. Whenever there's an update from the FDA, such as the, Tobacco 21, we provide information, work with our lawyers to provide guidance for them to ensure that there's compliance. We, within the tobacco industry, we want to make sure that we're the gold standard for, all of those inspections. So we do take a lot of time as an association, as well as working with a lot of our partners on the manufacturing side, such as Drew and his partners.
Again, I appreciate that, but I'm just wondering if we accept the definition, how do we know that the cigars that we are trying to collect data on are really meeting that definition of the premium cigar? And it sounds like there may be some inspections in the US, probably not outside the US, so we don't really know for sure.
Wei.
I have a question to Drew about patterns of use of cigars. So there are several questions. All of those are maybe related. Among your, in terms of your understanding of the consumers, how they use their cigars, for example, how many cigars they use per day or per week, and will they typically use cigar together with other kinds of tobacco products? We know for some other things such as ENDS, people may use e-cigarettes together with cigarettes. I don't know whether people also have this kind of co-use pattern. And also for ENDS, also some people use these as one way for cigarettes cessation. And I don't know whether among your consumers, whether they use this as a way for smoking cessation, yes or no. So I know there are several questions.
Sure.
Hopefully you can get back to me. Thanks.
It's a great question. And the past study data that's been analyzed, and I'll add this to the email with citations I send to committee staff this afternoon, shows that the median premium cigar consumer consumes 1.7 premium cigars a month. So I'm sure that many have a higher frequency, and that must mean that many have a lower frequency too. But the way we see the past study data is that it's not a daily or even a weekly use. And from my own experience, I can tell you that our consumers enjoy more cigars more frequently when the weather's nice. And when the weather is cold and miserable outside, consumption goes way down. And so the frequency may not be consistent throughout the year. It may be more concentrated in nicer weather. Secondly, in our experience, for premium cigars, there's very little to no co-use with other tobacco products. For instance, I know of a number of cigar lounges that have signs that even explicitly say cigar smoking only and no cigarettes are allowed. We view our products as artisanal and handcrafted using top quality tobaccos, and that doesn't really mix with other types of tobacco products. Also, and I only can speak from my personal experience from this, I'm not aware of anybody in my own experience who has transitioned from cigarettes to premium cigars, but I think one one thing the data show is that the premium cigars consumers do not inhale their products the same way or the same frequency that cigarette consumers do. And so I think without being a scientist here, I would imagine it'd be very difficult for a consumer to switch from cigarettes to premium cigars because one is inhaled and the other is almost always not.
Thank you very much. So just a quick follow-up question. So you mean that those consumers may consume cigar very occasionally, not daily, weekly, etc. So for example, you said they may consume 1.7 cigar per month. When they are not consuming cigars, will they use other kinds of tobacco?
I'm sure it varies. I can tell you from my experience, I live up north, and when it's winter out, I'm not going to go smoke a cigar for 3 months. I mean, I just stay inside. But when the weather's nice, and I'm out with friends at a barbecue, I might light up a premium cigar every week for the month of July or something. And so like my own personal frequency varies dependent upon the weather. And when it's cold outside, I'm not going to go outside and smoke anything.
And that path data that Drew has referenced, that if you look through the data sets there, you'll see points like no meaningful correlation between premium cigar use and cigarette smoking. That is something that's in that study directly. So there are a few sets that, we'll ensure that we send that over. Our organization, along with Cigar Rights of America, will be sending over a literature review of some of these data points further expanded by the May 7th deadline.
So I have a question, then I'll get to Kim. So you indicated that the largest market, and I assume that means per capita or something like that, in the world is in the US. Why do we have the highest rates in the world, and what are others doing about it that are keeping their rates low? Can you reflect on why we're...
Sure. That's a great question, Dr. Twitch. And I would say because tobacco is an American product. So cigar tobacco has been grown in the United States since before the country was founded. All 13 colonies had cigar tobacco farms, and our founders such as George Washington and Thomas Jefferson grew cigar tobacco. And so I think particularly here in Tampa, the former cigar city and cigar capital of the world, there is a historic connection between premium cigars in the United States that doesn't exist in Europe or doesn't exist in Asia. And so I think that's part of the reason why. And like we buy from a 7th generation family farmer in the Connecticut River Valley. We also buy cigar tobacco from Mennonites in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, who've been growing there since the 1600s. So I think there's just a long history of premium cigar use in the United States that doesn't exist elsewhere.
All right, Kim, Neil, and then Mache, and then we'll see if we have time for anyone else or if we need to wrap it up. So Kim?
Yes, so I would like to hear your perspective a bit more on how you distinguish a premium cigar, say, from other types of cigar products. So you've mentioned that your products are hand rolled. You mentioned that, of course, premium is a part of the product labeling. And you've said that these products are used at social events. So can you tell us just a bit about how the premium cigars differ from the other cigars as it relates to marketing and advertising, especially given that some of the other cigar products use those types of labels?
Sure. Let me see if I can share my screen here. This will allow me to do it. Actually, I'm getting an error message, but I'm going to send an image to the committee in my email this afternoon as well from a picture that is on FDA's website that shows all the cigars that are regulated in a large cigar category. So I think it really illustrates the point that Josh and I are trying to make, that the large cigar category is massive and includes very distinct products. as the committee is learning, there are different ways to define premium cigars, but I think there's a common thread amongst all the definitions, which are that premium cigars are large, they're handcrafted out of natural tobacco, and which is different than the cigarillos and the filtered tip cigars and the plastic tip cigars and so forth. And is in answer to your question about how the advertising and marketing for premium cigars differs than other tobacco products, in all honesty, I really don't know, because I know how we advertise. I don't know how the mass market companies and other tobacco companies advertise. They're entirely different channels. There aren't mass market cigar ads in Cigar Aficionado magazine, and then they don't attend Cigar Aficionado's big smoke events. It's just so different. So unfortunately, I can't speak to how they market their products.
And I think directly related with the marketing is the presentation and packaging. If you go to one of the PCA member stores, you're going to see, cabinets full of humidors and accessories that are expensive. Those handcrafted, boxes that have a story. Part of the marketing and the allure of premium cigars from the lounge and retail perspective is having people like Drew come to one of the shops and tell his personal story, to tell about the fourth generation, to tell about the American cigar that is still made in Tampa, versus going to a convenience store. The non-premium cigars are your 3 for 99 cents in a cellophane package. These are ornate artisanal presentation boxes that really tell the story of the manufacturer, of the brand. It's not something that you're going to find in a convenience store.
All right, with just a few minutes left. Moshe and then Neil. And then we'll
Thank
wind
you.
it up.
I have a question again to all of the free speakers. From your personal perspective, as a user, as a seller, or as a physician dealing with the patients who might use the product, do they express any health concerns? Do they ask about safety of the product? And if yes, what are the primary health concerns that the users, smokers of those products ask you about?
I've never had any user ask me about the health effects of premium cigars. I've had the question come up in visiting with policy folks at FDA as well as on Capitol Hill, but I've never had a user ask me about it.
I've had a similar experience with that. A lot of discussion on the health effects are all with policymakers, regulators, congressional staff, but no, consumers. As a consumer myself, in addition to my role in government affairs, that's not something that's top of mind for me as well.
And I think what you're doing here is, finding and educating the public on the health effects of cigar use is important. And I think it's that perception, right? That if you're using a premium product, if you're not using it frequently, or if you're using it this way or that way, that it may be safe. And so I think these are things that are really important to understand.
All right, Neil, you get the last word.
So I would like to ask sort of a personal question to Newman, not in relation to you being a manufacturer, but being a consumer. I've done a lot of research on tobacco products and nicotine. And if I do a study where we put a smoker on a research ward and they smoke no cigarettes for a week, and then they go out and smoke cigarettes again, they get nauseated and they basically have lost their tolerance and develop some toxicity. And then they get tolerant again pretty quickly. So I've got two questions to you. One is, when you don't smoke a cigar for 3 months and you go out and smoke a cigar, do you have any toxic effects? And the second question, which is related, is how long does it take you to smoke a cigar? Because there's a lot of nicotine in a cigar. And I'm curious, smoker smokes a cigarette in 8 minutes. How long does it take you to smoke a cigar?
That's a great question. And if I may answer those in reverse, one of the challenges with studying, I think, the toxicity of cigars is that consumers smoke different amounts of a cigar. Some might smoke it all the way to the bands. Some might smoke it halfway or put it down after an inch. And there's a study out there that I'll add this to my email that shows the wide range of amounts of cigars, the wide range in consumption amount of a cigar by typical consumer. And so when trying to think about what type of regimen that Caresta or FDA should develop for testing cigars, you have the variables of size, of length, of diameter, but also the variables of the fact that people smoke them just differently. And in answer to your question, it really varies. If my dad just walked away, but if it's after dinner, I'm sitting outside with my dad, I might smoke a cigar from beginning to end, and it could take an hour and a half if we're just sitting down and chatting. If I'm smoking a cigar with friends or something, and we have some place to go, I might put it down after 20 minutes. I think it varies. And I apologize, I answered the second part of the question and I have forgotten the first one.
The first part, I was just curious to know if when you haven't smoked for 3 months and you start smoking, do you experience sort of nicotine toxicity that a naive person would experience just taking in even small amounts of nicotine?
Sure. Well, I think tying back to your earlier question, because we've got a whole range of different types of tobacco leaves, and if any of you have the time or the ability to visit, or we can even do this over video, we can put out the different types of tobacco leaves. You can see the differences. But blending different types of tobacco together allows us to make a cigar that has a fuller taste to it, or a cigar that is smoother. And if I haven't smoked a cigar in 3 months over the winter, I will err on the side of a smoother cigar for the reasons that you mentioned as well. But there's just such a wide variety of taste in cigar that we can achieve by simply blending different types of tobacco leaves that nature produces.
Well,
very informative. Thank you.
Well, thanks to all of you who provided comments to the committee and to those of you who tuned in today as well. I speak for the entire committee, I think, when I say that we're eager to continue our work. And if any of you have other comments or questions, please send those to Amy Geller, the study director at premiumcigars@nas.edu. That's also found on our website. Please keep in mind that any material you wish to share with us will be made public through the public access file that we maintain. And that process is in place, just so you're aware, because the academies comply with Section 15 of the Federal Advisory Committee Act. So with that, again, thanks to all of our guests, and we'll adjourn for today, and the committee members will reconvene in closed session at 2:30 Eastern. So again, thanks again, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.